Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the courtyard of the Pentagon, where we're covering DoD Lab Day, an exposition of technologies from each of the military services as well as the Department of Defense. And we have with us a radar engineer from Naval Research Lab, Dr. Jack Logan. Jack, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
One of the project that you're specifically working on is shrinking active phased arrays, obviously a critical technology for the US Navy, Aegis combat system being the best example of it. But this technology is generally very large, has historically had some complex plumbing, has had a lot of topside weight on ships. Talk to us about what you're doing to shrink this technology and what the applications are if you can get it into a smaller form, fit, and function that can go on everything from an unmanned vehicle to even, I guess, helping you out on ships.
Right, so that's a great question. So what we're doing now is we're actually shrinking this technology using design ingenuity. So we're leveraging new design techniques to shrink the technology into a lower profile. So shown here is a smaller demo. So we have very, very small phased arrays here, very low profile, and the main reason why we're doing this is because a lower profile target has less of a target signature. They're harder to see, but one of the more critical parts of this technology and the challenging part is actually having a wideband phased array in a smaller aperture. So if we can have a wideband performance with this, we can actually leverage more different integration techniques into this aperture. So we can do more things with one aperture.
So what are some of the enabling technologies, and I know some of this is classified, but what are some of the enabling technologies that allow you to not just shrink it, make it lighter, lower power use, but also have the power, the fidelity, and the capability that you're getting out of a big antenna that's in a small one?
Right, so why phased arrays are so attractive and what you've seen with the Aegis is that they can have a very large area. So one of the key things about an array is you can design one element to have a very wideband performance and leverage new design techniques and actually scale that element to a larger array size. So as long as you ensure that one element can have this performance in an infinite array, so if this array was extending forever in all dimensions, you can actually take this and then scale this to any size you want. And the larger the aperture you have, the more gain you have, and then the more cost you're going to have. But what we focus on here at NRL is prototyping small arrays such as this one here, so we can actually demonstrate the proof of concept in a smaller aperture, which is easier to test, and then after that we can scale that to a larger size, which could then suit a bigger application.
And is there an estimate of the weight savings, for example, in the technology you have now compared to what the state-of-the-art is today?
It's hard to gauge that because the state-of-the-art today, usually on top of ships, you're going to see that there's different combat systems, different narrowband combat systems, which can have different antennas associated with each system. With this, we're going to consolidate different systems into one aperture to be serviced by one aperture. So the weight savings could be considerable. I can't give you a fixed amount because it's going to vary on a case-by-case basis. But if you're going from several different systems to one or a reduced number of systems, you can imagine the savings are considerable.
And how small can you make an array like this and still get acceptable or acceptable enough for whatever the application is? So for example, can you put this on a small hand-launched UAV, for example?
Right, great question. So it depends upon the operating frequency. So for this case right here, this ranges from S-band to KU band. For the frequency you're talking about would be millimeter wave frequencies. I actually have a small little demo right here, if you excuse me for 1 second.
Absolutely. We always like to do a little bit of show and tell. Oh, you're using the exact one that we earlier discussed was so cool.
So as Vago noted, you can get these very, very small. So one of the key things we focus on at NRL isn't just performance, but it's affordability and manufacturability and scalability. So ideally we can take any of these apertures, say here, we can scale this to a higher frequency, which could be a smaller size or support a different application at a higher frequency band. And all these are very low cost. You can print these all in one build. This aperture here costs only about $500. This would be even less because it's a smaller size. So you can see that what we're here is we have very high performance apertures, scalable apertures, affordable apertures is what we're going for.
Jack, thanks very much and best of luck on the research.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.